I think we can just kick off. So welcome to our live session from cart to conversion. We'll talk about all things abandonment revenue and abandonment flows today, and you'll get some live examples from 7, 8, 9-figure brands that Isaac will be sharing with us. So we'll be starting with some quick intros here. So we have some great speakers, Ben, Isaac, and Yitzi. We'll start with Ben. Ben, do you mind giving like a 30-second intro about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Shubhangi. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm the Director of Sales here at retention.com. I've been with Retention, I don't know, coming up about 18 or so months now. Been a pretty wild ride. I was the 9th hire 18 months ago, and we're now about 55, 56, something along those sort of lines. Ultimately, we're here to help e-commerce brands from small, medium, large through to enterprise really get more out of their website visitors, and we'll dive into what that looks like. But ultimately, we're here to help you identify those website visitors that show intent, show engagement, that aren't maybe purchasing or kind of signing up to your newsletters, and drive more revenue through your email programs. So we'll dive into that in more detail later in the presentation here, but I'll pass over to Yutzi to intro to himself.
Hey guys, so my name is Yitzi Gruen. We're located in New York. We are the Judaica place. We have a full retail store. Been here for about 30 years. We've been online for probably about 15 years. And Isaac's been our email master over this time. And what happened was we started noticing that people would come to the website, they would leave, and we wouldn't capture their email address. That's kind of the initial problem we had. I think many people face the same problem. And Retention came on board, and what they were able to do is they were able to capture all those email addresses for us and open up a brand new channel of customers, which we would never have had. So I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we've been very excited to work with Retention.
Awesome. Isaac, over to you.
Sure. So Isaac Hyman, I'm the founder of High Flyer Digital. I'll have a little bit more of my bio in a second, but generally I help brands unlock the true revenue potential from their email list and actually create profitable, predictable, and sustainable revenue streams, which generally helps a lot of e-commerce brands get to the next level. Been working with Yitzi for a very long while, working with retention.com as well, and we've seen some great initiatives between Retention, and I'm really happy to be here and share some of the insights on how to level up beyond just the out-of-the-box automations or ideas that you may have heard.
Awesome. So just some housekeeping items for you all today. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat. Make sure to select panelists and attendees or everyone so that everyone can see what you're posting. Ask away all your questions, all your problems with your abandonment flows at the moment, and we'll get all of those answered. So starting off with Isaac. Isaac, take it away.
Great. So thank you again for having me on this webinar. Really, again, excited to be here with Retention and with our most valued client, Yitzi Gruen at Judaica Place. Just a little bit about me and why I'm here and why I want to share this guidance and this wisdom with you. As I mentioned, I'm the founder of High Flyer Digital. I actually was the VP of email SMS retention at some of the 9- and 10-figure brands out there, and I've been literally on your side of the table, right? I understand some of the challenges you're facing, some of the revenue goals you need to hit, the profitability goals you need to hit. And so I came in from the angle of, I want to share the secret strategies that I learned at the top 1% and bring it to the small guy, help them level the playing field. I was the author of the Ultimate E-commerce Email SMS Playbook, which we'll talk about in a second later on. Created the Mach 10 Email Masterclass, which is more of a, there's high level strategy, and I bring it down to eye level as well with the Masterclass. I've sent over 1 billion emails annually, directly attributing to about 300 million plus in email revenue. So this trial and error has already been initiated on some of the top brands' email lists. I've managed multi-million-dollar email lists and member email lists. Luckily enough to be an award winner for best email performance at Blue Course Summit, beating out some of the top brands out there, and guest speaker at eTail, Post Funnel, Blue Course Summit, and other events. And we work with hundreds of brands, hundreds of e-commerce stores so far, again, helping them level the playing field and actually competing to win in a very crowded e-commerce marketplace. And that's what I'm going to bring to you today. So a little bit about some of the strategies I'm going to share here, just some background about the story. And again, I started off as an email campaign manager and eventually was lucky enough to be able to have opportunities to become the director and then the VP. But before, back in the day, probably like a lot of brands are facing right now, the days are spent obsessing over day-to-day campaigns, obsessing over the minutia, the copywriting, the designs, things like that. And those lead to minimal revenue gains and just really maximum burnout. I was running a team of about 4 or 5. I even worked with an agency as well, and we still had maximum burnout. And we realized, the epiphany was that when you refocus on the 80-20 of email and SMS marketing, that's how you win, right? That's how you do a lot better. The 80-20 is clearly automations, but then you go even deeper. If you focus on the 80-20 of automations, then you will really scale really well. And I think there was a recent study from Klaviyo that just said like the best performing automations are really just cart, browse, checkout, abandon, all the abandon flows and like welcome series. And those are the things I knew 6 years ago at the top brands. Right? We did studies on that. So when you refocus your energies on the 80-20 of automations, you'll do a lot better. And just a clear example of how we did that was one of our 9-figure brands grew revenues from 47 million to 73 million in just 8 months. So these are strategies that will allow you to grow fast, save more time in your day, break free from that day-to-day mindset, and focus on the 80-20 rule for email and SMS. So that's why I created that strategy. So let me dive into a little bit about what do I mean by the 5 stages of abandonment, right? We all know a funnel, right? We kind of understand how that works. If you don't understand, more than happy to share more offline. But when you think about how a customer or visitor comes to your website, you think about all the possible touch points that they can come to, right? So we know cart abandon. Most people talk about cart abandon, but there's also checkout abandon, which is a little bit of a deeper side of the funnel. But then there's also browse abandon. When they're viewing a product and they don't quite buy and they're looking at it, didn't quite add to cart, didn't start checkout. So that's another stage of abandonment. But then there's a couple more that not every brand understands. And if we tackle each side of each stage of this abandonment funnel, you'll do a lot better. Search abandon is another one where, again, not many brands know about, where people stop, go to the website, start searching. And that's an area where you can actually get some data and bring it back into your ESP and actually make some money from it. And then, of course, we all know website abandon, where you get, which is, again, where retention.com excels in, where people come to your website, don't know who they are, don't sign up, and then they leave the website. So what do we do then? So those are the 5 stages of abandonment that I myself have zeroed in on. And I found that if I excel in those 5 stages, well, that's going to be majority of your revenue. And that's going to be the areas we're going to focus on today. So let's start with really a quick win. This is a really quick win for a lot of brands. It's really important to understand that cart abandon, if you do a quick Google search or look online anywhere, you'll hear about cart abandon everywhere, right? Cart abandon. But cart abandon is a little bit different than checkout abandon. So as a quick win, kind of things we do automatically when we come into a brand, we split them out. There's cart abandon and there's checkout abandon. And it's really important to understand the logic behind it and how to market to those different stages of the funnel. So it's really important to map out your send timing, map out your abandon logic so they run correctly. So for example, if I add to cart but did not start checkout, I have a different type of flow. If I did start checkout, that is a different type of flow, different timing, different cadence of emails, different number of touches, different logic. And we found that if someone is abandoning their cart, you want to focus more on value. What is the value of buying it from you guys? Because this brand may not have as many value propositions as, let's say, Amazon or your competitors, right? What does your shipping look like? What is your return policy? Do I get rewards? My coupon code? That's all value. Whereas the checkout abandon, you have a different focus, right? We want to focus on convenience, speed, in, out, on with your day type of approach. So it's really important to start with number 1, splitting out those abandoned stages. So cart abandon gets one approach, checkout abandon gets another approach. Both one idea, right? Recovering carts. But now that you split it out, you have a different strategy for each stage of that funnel. So that's checkout and cart abandon 2.0, as I call it. And again, you can enhance both automations overall. And there's 3 ways I've identified, again, that it applies to brands that are 6 figures, to brands that are 10 figures. There's 3 ways to grow your abandoned sales. There's number 1, you could identify more carts. Number 2, you can increase your clicks. Or number 3, you can improve your conversion rate. Okay, and those who read my book or subscribe to my channel on YouTube, you understand the idea. I always say focus on the click. That's all that matters. That's all that matters because every relationship starts with a click. So if we can improve our click rate, we'll make a lot more money. And then once the traffic comes to our site, we can improve conversion rate and then make more money from our cart and checkout abandons. But there's another way, which is again where retention.com comes in. We can identify more carts, and there's an incrementality there from having an app like retention.com, a tech like retention.com to help identify more carts. As I mentioned before, cart abandon, different approach, focus on value, and checkout abandon, focus on convenience and speed. But that's something you may hear also from Klaviyo, or you may hear from an ESP saying like split it out. I'm going to now show you how to level it up even bigger, even deeper than you thought was possible using an omnipresent approach and helping more abandoners across the finish line. This is where it gets, you know, I read a book, I forgot, Scott Galloway, and it had a great quote in there. There's a fine line between creepy and relevant. And one thing that is very interesting is that the more campaigns you send that are more relevant and more personalized, the better you'll do and the better the customer will enjoy it. So when you think about abandon, most people think, oh, let's send an email. Oh, okay, let's send an SMS, right? Relatively recent, email and SMS. And usually, let's say 90% of brands kind of finish it right there. But using the email and the phone number, both of which are unique identifiers for customers across the web, you can use that to power up your abandoned recoveries in many more ways. Great example. I have a flow I've built out specifically for the top 1% that they're running right now. They are sending that email over to Facebook for Facebook retargeting, right? They send that email and phone number over to Google for Google remarketing and actually try to recover the cart abandoners. We're not trying to recover every single person here. We're trying to recover the ones who abandoned their cart because there's a lot of value there. But that's not all we could do, right? We can also send that phone number out to your customer service, which I have worked with vendors that actually do that. They will call your cart abandoners for you. This is all part of this omnipresent approach for cart abandon and checkout abandon. In addition, they also can send that email or that phone number to a vendor that also will send them a mailing because they have their address, they have all these details. Now, that's an omnipresent approach, right? Now you're all on mission cart recovery, and every single channel out there is working cohesively in an orchestrated fashion to win back more carts and win more customers. That's the kind of the omnipresent level that the top brands are doing right now. Is it cheap? Is it super efficient? Don't know. You're gonna have to find out for yourself. I definitely would recommend exploring another way to add on more options here. But this is how the top brands are doing, using omnipresence, and it all starts with identifying the email and phone number. Now that we talked about cart and checkout, right, we leveled those up to the next level. And again, you could do it on both of them, right? That's 2 stages of the abandon funnel right there. Let's talk a little bit about browse abandon. If you're in Klaviyo or Omnisend or Semlane or wherever you are, we all know about browse abandon, right? Where customer comes to the site, doesn't start, checkout, doesn't add an item to cart, but they're viewing products. And when they view a product, that shows that they have this sort of intent. They have this interest here. And typically brands will send a, hey, come back to the item you loved, right? Or come check it out. We've got 5,000 reviews on the item you had your eye on, type of thing, right? What happens though, after those 1 or 2 touches, the customer then falls back into this campaign cadence, right? I'm gonna give an example in a second, but when you get them into the mindset of shopping for this one item and they're showing an interest there, why are you letting customers go back into your campaigns? It's totally not what they're interested in. They've shown intent about this one product. So you want to walk customers virtually down the aisle and keep them in the aisle, keep their mindset, keep it top of mind, because that's what they're interested in buying, right? And you have to understand that one personalized email is worth 10 non-personalized ones. So if you're sending one great personalized email, like a category browser, which I'm going to explain to you in a second how that works, it's better than 10 non-personalized campaigns that you may be sending. So you want to stop the campaign cadence to them and start walking them down the aisle, expanding your browse abandon to another level. I'm going to show you exactly how that works on the next slide. Here's a great example. We all know MacBooks, we all know Apple, right? We can understand that product. So let's say I myself was viewing MacBooks, right? And this is a retailer who sells MacBooks and headphones and cameras or whatever it may be. So I'm in the market to buy a MacBook, okay? And of course, you'll send your browse abandon 1, browse abandon 2. And what happens, like I said, 90% of brands will go back to sending their campaigns. They'll go back to selling headphones or selling TVs or selling cameras. You could be a beauty store and eight-figure skincare brand, and someone is looking at lipstick, and then all of a sudden they do the browse abandon, and you know what? Let's go back to selling them serums and bundles and gift cards. Okay, that is distracting. That is entirely distracting. So you want to expand beyond just those 1 or 2 touches to create more follow-up emails, because the money is in the follow-up. So a great example would be, if I'm browsing MacBooks right here, I may not be interested in that specific MacBook, but I am interested in MacBooks. So I'm going to see my MacBook new arrivals. Another email, I'm going to see my MacBook bestsellers, MacBooks under 500, MacBooks with a top rated, MacBooks with great reviews, MacBooks on sale. And you have a whole bunch of email touches surrounding the product that they're showing intent in and what they're most interested in. And that's how you actually will win the customer, more customers overall, and actually increase your engagement rate too, because it's more personalized to them. So you really got to focus on the follow-up, because that's where the money is at.
Isaac, I just want to chime in on one thing. It's so important what you're saying. When we were doing email marketing initially, we were kind of like sending out emails, and as you know, I wasn't a big fan of email marketing. But over time, you taught us to go granular, which is what you're getting at. How granular can you get without spending an enormous amount of money? Years ago, we had to take databases and break them down and kind of like segment out different types of customers in order to get this granular. But today, with the software we use in Klaviyo, we go really, really granular. And the more granular we go, the higher our campaign results are. And you've shown that us, and our campaigns do very well. But as granular as we can go, it's down to a department, into a category, and down to a product. You've shown that really makes a huge difference. They're not like little. These touch points are game changers for us, and they've been. And the audience will, the attendees will see when you show them, it makes a huge difference on it. So everything you're saying is 100% accurate. And I was not a fan in the beginning, as you know, but I'm a huge fan. And everything here that you're saying is gold.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for the shout out. And that's exactly what it is. And you can see right here, you go beyond 1 or 2 touches. I'd love to share Judaica Place's experience here, but you can see right here in Wayfair, I myself was looking to adorn my dining room, and I was looking at a sideboard from Wayfair, right? And I like that sideboard. I think I bought it, but that sideboard, I was looking at it, and I got my browse abandoned, and I got my 1 touch and my 2 touch. Okay, great. But we want to level it up, 2.0, right? So look at Wayfair's, look at the inbox here for me. Sideboards, the latest and greatest. Sideboards, reviewers love. Sideboards I'll love. Pick for you sideboards, sideboard sale, sideboards under 300, on and on and on and on. And that's my inbox. Super personalized to what I was looking at, and it outperforms them sending me an email about roofing or whatever it may be, right? So that's a more personalized approach, and you can do that if you have your browser band set up and you have the email that you're getting from, let's say, retention.com, or really from any browser band campaign automation you have set up. That's category browse. And just to finalize that, you can really, in order to really maximize the potential of it, you got to make sure, like Yitzi just said, you got to make sure you have clean product data. You got to make sure your breadcrumbs are correct. You got to make sure your collections and filters are there. So important to have an email that's really personalized to them. We'll show the products that are most relevant to them. I'm showing you the emails I got. You see the sideboards right at the top, and 1 email, 2 emails, and I could screenshot more. Then ASUS does the same thing. So it really works extremely well. So you got to break free from that campaign mindset and level up the browse abandoned automation to this level. That's kind of category browse right there. Let's dive into the 3rd stage, right? We're talking about 5 stages of abandonment. Let's pull up 4 right there. Search abandonment. 43% of customers start with search. It's the most traffic sections of the site, okay? And when you think about it, when you type into your search bar, you have this autofill data coming up, right? If I type in iPhone, which I'm going to show you in a second, there's this autofilled search data that comes up from your website or from an app running your search. And you can actually find these mid-intent shoppers who are still in research mode. And again, this is the search one, people who searched a product but did not view a product. So there's an opportunity there. They're abandoning their search, haven't viewed a product. So what do you want to be? You want to be a lot more helpful to them and help guide them to view a product. The cool thing is, every single time you take them down the stage of the funnel, they will trigger a whole new automation. So we want to uncover more searches to really make search abandon work for us. you can see right here from PopSockets, I screenshot this, right? You can see I typed in iPhone 13, and this drop down is what their auto-filled search data shows, right? So I could click on iPhone 13, I can click on a product, I can click on iPhone 13 Pro, and it has do you mean, self-correcting, it's auto-correct, auto-filled. So you have that auto-filled data at your fingertips. All you need to do is pair it with an email, right? Now, this one is a little harder to build, I'll be honest. I was working at the top 9 and 10 figure brands, little harder to build. You need to really get with your website team, make sure you have the data coming in on a typical cadence. But if you can unlock the email address and see what they're searching right now, that is a whole separate automation called search abandon. So you have the power of search on your website. It's the most traffic place on your site. So now if you can identify that email and see what they're searching, that will help you solve that search abandon stage of the funnel. Here you go. Here's some examples from Smartwool, Michael Kors, J. Crew, big brands, and they are leveraging their website filters, or leveraging their sorting and recommendations to drive sales by helping handhold those searchers to explore and dive into certain products. So great example, stop searching, start exploring. That's the search abandon automation, right? There's a lot of power within it, a little harder to build, not really just a turnkey solution, it's a little harder, but if you can solve that, imagine 43% of your visitors coming to your search toolbar, well, you're gonna do a lot better, right? The last stage of the abandon funnel, right? We talked about cart abandon, checkout abandon, browse abandon, how to expand that, and search abandon. Now let's finish up with the site abandon side. Many times people come to the site and it's very simple, right? You come to the site, brands tend to feel like you either buy or goodbye, right? That's all we have for you, right? It's either you're buying, maybe you're opting in, or you're goodbye, right? You don't want to, there's no way to identify them, no way to find them. But when you identify those anonymous visitors, you can then nurture them on demand. Now, there's a trick behind nurturing them, because you can't just simply, automatically pitch them with a sale. Maybe you can test it out, but generally you have the opportunity to nurture those visitors now that you've identified them and actually convert them into customers, or at least into fans, right? And again, because it's the funnel approach, then site abandon, if you can move them from site abandon to search abandon, or from site abandon to browse abandon, well, then the rest of the automations pick up the slack, and then you're pretty good, right? And it all comes down to the click. That's what matters. You can see on the right here, there's a couple emails that are very generic, raving reviews, or 6 reasons why you should shop at our place. And that's a good branded email to come for site abandon, because it allows you to not be too salesy, not too promotional, but also building trust and building a little bit more credence with your customers. And I found whenever you're doing site abandon right here, you really got to zero in on just 2 goals, right? Site abandon is you may not identify them, you don't know who they are, or maybe they didn't view a product, or they didn't search an item, right? They didn't search for anything. And you have 2 goals really to do. Number 1, get the click. And number 2, get their intent. Okay, as I mentioned before, focus on the click. Every relationship starts with a click. Tons of books written about that. And if you focus on the click, that gives you the intent. That gives you the interest, the dialogue. It starts the conversation, right? It's like coming into a store and you're talking to the person, and that's showing that intent. Where are you going, right? And the other way is you can actually get customers to indicate what they're shopping for when they click. So that's why I always recommend, whenever you're building an email, always have different click points that they can click on, because what they click on will allow you to take them down the journey. Great example of this. Let's say I don't know what a person is shopping for. They just came to my site, left, got their email from retention, was able to start nurturing them. So they clicked on the email, but the email had category navigation within it. It had shirts, shoes, socks, pants. They clicked on shirts. I now have an indication from them about what they're interested in, and then I could send them the next email. Will all be about shirts, like what are shirts, different sizes, best-selling shirts, new arrivals, and that's the relevancy. So now that we took them from just a site abandoner, now you actually are getting some data about what they're shopping, and then you have a whole great nurture series right there, and of course, bring them down the funnel, eventually get them to checkout abandon, and really just a purchase. So that's kind of the goals of site abandon, and it works really well if you understand the abandoned funnel. And again, this is a great segue into Yitzi's story a little bit. He mentioned it before, but These are the tactics that he's running on his website. And of course, we're always leveling up to the next level. So it was about 90 days ago, we actually were onboarded with retention.com. I was a big fan. I said, you know, Judaica Place, you guys are definitely a great fit for this tool. I think it'll be a fantastic way to add on some additional revenue. So far, year to date, looks like they added on, just at a glance, when I saw at least an additional 20K in revenue from Retention's identity resolution software, and they significantly reduced their email acquisition costs from list rentals, paid ads, and partnerships, which they were doing before. Again, let Yitzi talk about that. And they increased their list size of engaged and highly targeted subscribers. You know, in conjunction with our strategy, it allows Judaica Place to really maximize the potential of their email SMS program. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, Yitzi.
Sure. So one of the benefits that we have from going granular was that not just were we saving money by sending out less emails and annoying customers, the customers were happier because they were getting very targeted emails, which were relevant for them. And what you were saying before about the intent, that's really important because if we know their intent, we can service them in a way that doesn't get them annoyed. And that was a big benefit we had from starting to segment down all the categories and going granular. What retention added for us was that we were retaining, somebody would click on a website, assuming they were a customer, we knew their intent, we can start to email them, which is great, but many people came to our website the first time and we never had their email address. We weren't able to contact them ever again. And we would see this increase in clicks, maybe a new product came on the market, we would see our site go up, but we wouldn't have any additional email people signing up, so we were losing those customers. When you purchase about retention, you said, hey, we can now capture those people. However, retention does that in the background. We were like, okay, that's really impossible. We started launching the campaign a little bit slow in the beginning because I was a little apprehensive. Like many people were to start putting money into something that's, you know, see if it's cost effective, because there's a lot of software out there and everybody promises they can do whatever. But we started it slowly, and immediately we saw retention start sending us back those emails, so we knew that it was working. Then we started launching campaigns, and you had segmented those people that came in for retention, so we were able to really see the retention customers and how that was growing. And we started seeing a very large, an unusually large amount of cart abandonment turning to purchasers. And we saw that separate from our other campaigns that were running up until then. So we saw that this retention was really working. We became a big fan. And then, like you can see the numbers over there, all those numbers, and I think those numbers are probably about a week or 10 days old, because since then our return is much higher than that. And we're only with retention about the same, maybe 90 days. We got a ramp up. So by now already it's even higher than that. And it continuously grows. It wasn't like, okay, we went and we were stagnant. It went and it grew and it grew. And as we're seeing more and more, we're watching the retention account, it's continuing to increase more and more. So our percentage of returning, and we surpassed the amount of the monthly fee that we pay retention. It was, we surpassed it a long time ago, and we were totally blown away with what was happening here. But the best thing was we were able to see, we can monitor and we can see our response, what we were getting for it, and we were very, very impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pass it to, I guess, the retention team if to chime in on that. My own chime in would be, there's a measure of incrementality here that, you know, brands are doing one thing right now with their abandonment process, but then retention adds an incrementality above it, which definitely is super powerful. So that's my feedback.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. You can go to the next slide, please, Shiongi. Cool. So I think like a lot of what Isaac and Yutzi have talked about is that email works really well, right? The issue that we're trying to solve is that you can't identify everyone on your site. So when you have a process that works well, what we want to do is just push more people into it. So all of those flows we've discussed, we want to just make work even better. The main, or a shocking stat, I won't go through all of this slide, but the main one that we like to put on is that 30%, and this is pulled from Shopify, 30%, so nearly 1 in 3 people that come onto your site are actually abandoning to buy from someone else. So it's not that they're coming onto your site, leaving and never purchasing that item, they're buying from someone else, one of your competitors. What we want to do is, out of that 30%, trying to identify as much of them as possible so that we can put them into those flows that we know work well. Slide. 3 key challenges that we're trying to solve. So the first one is growing that email list. We know in this day and age of cookies going away and all of those issues and those challenges that we're facing, growing that email list is becoming increasingly more difficult. The second one is putting those people into those flows that work really well. We want to push more people into them. Identifying them is becoming more difficult. Again, the cookie situation is making that more of a challenge. And again, talking about cookies, Apple's iOS changes, when we specifically think of things like Meta, so retargeting on Facebook and Instagram, those have become more challenging as well. So across the board, growing that list, pushing more people into flows and identifying more people that we can then retarget through Meta. Those are the 3 key challenges that we're here to solve. So what you'll have is a dashboard that you can come in and, you've mentioned it already. We want you to justify us on ROI. So we want you to say, hey, we're paying retention $1,000 and they're showing us that they're making an additional 10,000. So we're seeing a 10x for retention. So what you'll have is you'll have a dashboard of exactly how many emails we're passing you, how much revenue we produce, the breakdown of each flow, and that is easy for you to log in and see every single day. So we have 4 solutions, and I'll run through and give you a kind of high level of what each of those look like. Our first solution is called Reclaim. This is looking at the really low in the funnel, high intent individuals that are coming to the site that can then get pushed into those flows that Isaac's just gone through, things like cart abandonment, browse abandonment, product checkout, etc. So what this is actually saying is, on average, and this might be shocking to some people, but only 15% of the time you can identify someone that abandons a cart. I spoke to, in the last 18 months, a huge amount of e-commerce brands, and every time I've asked them one question, how many people are you pushing, or how many people are you identifying compared to how many people are actually abandoning a cart on your site? It's very rare that someone knows that answer, but you can very easily go and have a look. Go and have a look at how many people have abandoned a cart on your site in the last 30 days, and then how many abandoned cart emails you've triggered in that same time frame, and you'll be able to see the percentage of drop off that you're missing. The industry average is 15%. So if you flip that and you think about, that means 85% of the highest intent of person that comes to your site are currently not being able to be identified. What we want to do is identify up to 50% of those. So now you're going to go from 15% to 1 in 2 people that abandon a cart be able to receive an abandoned cart email. All we're doing is we're duplicating your current cart abandonment flow in your Klaviyo, SendLane, whatever ESP you're using. We're duplicating those important flows, creating a second one, putting the emails that we find that you're currently missing into that second flow. And now you've got, within Klaviyo, SendLane, whatever it is, you've got 2 flows. Your first cart abandonment flow that still keeps producing the exact same amount that it's currently doing. And then you'll have the second flow that produces incremental additional revenue that you otherwise wouldn't have captured, because otherwise they would have gone into that first flow. So this is really powerful. It's a really light lift in the sense that if you have those flows already operating, you just duplicate them, and we help you do that through the implementation process. And then we push the people into those. And we have a delay, which is a longer delay than your flows will have, so that we know that that's additional. All we're doing is sweeping up anyone that you miss. The second product is called Grow. Now, Grow is, as the name suggests, the one that's really going to help you grow that email list. That is picking up the more, and I like to think of them as digital window shoppers, the more kind of generic person that's maybe having a browse. They haven't got to the point in their intent journey of actually putting something in the cart, but they've come onto the site and maybe they've spent a certain amount of time, maybe they've visited a certain amount of pages, they've shown legitimate intent. We're going to pick up those types of people and push them into maybe a browse abandonment, maybe a welcome series, something that makes sense for you and your brand. What we're trying to solve is that, oh, sorry, just 2 seconds on that one, Shivangi, is on average, people collected net new visitors via a pop-up, and on average, they collect about 2% of those site visitors. So out of that remaining 98%, we want to collect as many as we can that are actually legitimate and relevant and worthwhile going towards growing that email list. There's some concerns that people typically have with that product, right? Like, someone's come onto my site, they haven't actually signed up to my email, they haven't made a purchase. I don't want to email that type of person because I'm going to see huge increases in unsubscribes and spams and issues like that. Well, we actually throw away a huge amount of data that we could pass you. And when I say data, I'm really referring to the plain text email address of that site visitor. We throw away a lot of that because we don't think that they're qualified enough for you to then follow up with them. So as you can see here, we start with the amount of site visitors that come to your site. And as we move them through our activity checking funnel, we're getting rid of a lot of people. So what you'll find, and I'll give you a ballpark, is we typically are able to pick up, let's say, about 80% of the people that come to the site. What we actually pass you in terms of a plain text email address for our Grow product is around 10%. So what that means, if you have 100,000 people come into your site each month, we should be able to grow your email list by 10,000 highly engaged people that you otherwise would never have been able to identify every single month, which is crazy. So we talked about Reclaim. That is going to look at your high intent, like low in the funnel people that come on and go into those specific types of flows. Grow is going to be the one that grows that email list faster than anything you've ever seen. And then Meta. Meta is going to pick up people, our Meta audiences, is going to pick up people that come onto the site and then allow you to retarget them through Facebook and Instagram. It does exactly what the Facebook pixel does. So you've got Facebook pixel picking up people that come onto the site, our pixel that picks up people that come onto the site. All we're doing is merging the two audiences. So now if you are using Facebook to retarget those audiences, you're just going to have a wider net to cast, more people to retarget. You build out the audience in the same way, you just have a larger pool to now hit. And then we have a tool called Reactivate, which we call it a bonus, but it's a really awesome tool. This is going to look at your current email list, whether that's dormant or whether that's active, and it's going to assess and it's going to say who on that list is actually worth you reaching out to. So if you uploaded your dormant list into Reactivate, Reactivate will spit out a second file. It will scan all of those emails and it's going to tell you, hey, out of your dormant list, top 20%, they're actually using their inbox. So in the last 3, 4, 5 days, whatever time frame you want to set, in the last 3 or 4 or 5 days, they have been on their inbox speaking to other people or other brands in a recent time frame. However, the bottom 20%, and almost more importantly, is they actually haven't touched their inbox in 6 months. Don't bother trying to re-engage them. Don't put them through a win-back campaign because ultimately they're dead inboxes. They're not being used, and you're only going to harm your open rates and decrease your likelihood of having a good deliverability. And in regards to pricing, I won't go into this in huge detail because it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Ultimately, like I said, we want you to see an ROI from this, a really strong ROI, and we price that. We price it based off how much traffic you get, how much volume you have. There's a lot of things that we look at around, how much you're emailing, how big is your list already, how aggressive do you want to be, how conservative, what flows do you have. There's a lot of things that determine what this pricing will look like. But we have people paying $500 a month. We have people paying tens of thousands of dollars for these huge enterprise companies. So it's anything and in between, but it would be a kind of a more personal conversation that we would need to go through to understand, how many emails can we provide you? What's your strategy? It's not just a case of, one size fits all. In terms of the implementation process, if you have these flows set up, we have an integration that's pre-built with the likes of Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce. We have an integration that's built with Klaviyo, SendLane, SendGrid, Iterable, and all of the main ESPs. If you have the flows built in already, if you already have an email program that works, this is a relatively light lift, and typically we get you set up in a 45-minute implementation call. If you're on custom sites and it's a bit more complex, maybe it takes a couple of calls, but this is not a big heavy lift as long as you have something that's working. And I think that's a really important piece. Is what I would say, and I'm pretty transparent with this, is retention.com is not the golden bullet that saves an email program that's really struggling and that's not optimized. It's a tool that makes something that's working well work better. So you do need to have a process. You do need to be sending semi-regularly. You do need to have flows. But once you're at that point, this is a tool that's really useful for sure to really take it to the next level. Some examples of some of the brands that I'm sure you're familiar with: True Classic, Dr. Squatch, some of our brands that are using us. That's it from me.
All right. So thank you, everyone. That was such a good presentation. Great insights. I don't see a lot of questions popping up in the chat, so I'll give everyone a minute to send any questions they have, and if not, we can wrap this one up. We do have a giveaway. So Isaac is giving away his 10-figure email and SMS playbook for free. I'll link this up in our follow-up email to you along with the recording, so you guys can check out the recording and get all the strategies, and it'll be with you forever. I still don't see any questions, so I guess we can wrap this up. Thank you everyone for joining our From Cart to Conversion webinar today, and keep an eye out for the recording. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Yeah.
Okay, Isaac and Ben, thanks for the time. Good to talk to you guys. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.